What's up, guys? No intro for today. Today we are only going to do a deck tech on this miracle bully list that I have, which I built. And at first it was just a fun idea to try things out, and as I've played, I realized that the deck is actually pretty good. It plays pretty well, and it is surprising, and people don't expect a lot of the things that the deck does. And it really, I think personally, it brings a smile to my face, and I think my opponents, when they see the interactions that come out, they are either pretty impressed or pretty salty. Either way, I'm kind of happy with the result. I like it. And you don't win every game, but that's fine. Hearthstone is about having fun, and luckily with the deck we're able to have fun and be somewhat competitive as well. So here's a full deck tech. I'm going to explain the cards that I'm running, why I chose them, why each card is good, and how I came about the deck first. So first of all, Berkeley Bully is an interesting card. And I really wanted to build a deck that implemented this card, right? And since Priest is my favorite class, I wanted to play a Priest deck. Now, the issue with this is, what can you do with the coin that's going to give you added value, right? So the most obvious answer is Lyra, right? You can get a bunch of coins and you can play them for cheap to get more priest spells and mana to cast them. That's great. But the most obvious thing is to play with a Gadget Stand Auctioneer. And this is typically what Miracle Rogues would do. Now some people play one Bully and then they play Gadget Stand. And so now you have an extra source of coins, right? It's pretty cool. Now, what does drawing cards do for a priest player? And obviously, if you're going to draw, you want to reach something that's pretty cheap and affordable. And thus, I thought Divine Spirit, OTK, Inner Fire combo. That's what I wanted to do. That's where I wanted to get, right? So in order to do that, I took a typical Divine Spirit list, and I removed the card draw, like Acolyte of Pain. I removed that. Remove the Wild Pyro, remove the Circle of Healing, because I don't need those activators anymore. Because my draw mechanic is going to be the Berkeley Bully plus Gadget Stand Auctioneer. And instead, I just tried to find as defensive an opening start as I could. And this is the list that I pretty much came up with. So I'm running double Inner Fire because I want the consistency of being able to pull this card when I need to, right? When I'm about 15 cards in. By turn 6 or turn 7, I want to start searching for lethal. If I don't get the Nuts hand, I want to start pushing towards that opening where I can start ending the game, right? So playing 2 is important to me. If you pull one with Shadow Visions, sometimes it's okay to go ahead and use it and get like a 8/8 or a 10/10 creature. That's okay. Sometimes you need to play around removal. Sometimes you just save it. Double Cleric. This is one of 2 non-Gadget Stand card draw effects that we have, and it also gives us some 1-drop. And a Northshire Cleric usually was never played on turn 1, but now it's actually a very decent turn 1 play. So we run 2 of those. We run 2 Potion of Madness to kind of shore up the aggro matchups, help give us something early in the game to do that's relevant. 2 Power Word Shield, which is the other card draw mechanic, as well as a buff. 2 Divine Spirit, part of the OTK combo. And then Divine Spirit's an interesting card because there are 2 ways. This is the win condition. Okay, Divine Spirit is part of your win condition. Now you win 2 ways. Against control or against slower decks, obviously you search for the OTK combo. But against decks like Pirate Warrior or whatnot, you don't win by getting OTK combo. You could, but typically you win by putting a Priest of the Feast or a Tarcreeper and putting him at 10 health. Because that is going to cost your aggro druid opponent or your Pirate Warrior opponent to put too much resource into clearing that board. And if that's going to build card advantage for you, and if you build card advantage and you put up, if something sticks that they can't clear, you're going to win the game. 2 Radiant Elemental. The curve of our deck outside of the Berkeley Bullies and the Gadget Stand is very low. As you can see, look at our curve. We got 8 1s, 8 2s, 5 3s, 3 4s. That is cheap. That is a huge portion of the deck that costs less than 3 mana. So Radiant Elemental is going to greatly discount a lot of the cards that we see play. And because we're playing something like Gadget Stand Auctioneer, we're going to have the ability, should we stick a Radiant Elemental on the board, to kind of really cheapen the size of our spells and thus go off the way Miracle goes off. And also against aggro, it's a good drop, and it's a turn 2 play, and that's relevant. Shadow Visions, this card obviously is very good for priests. It tutors for the spell that we need. Shadow Word Pain. Because of our OTK nature, we kind of need some kind of early game removal. 2 Cabal Talon Priests, and this is typical, right? A good 3-drop, good stats for a 3-drop, and it buffs something, and that's good. That's strong for tempo. If you can stick something the turn before, following it up with Talon Priest is a great play. 1 Death. Now, I could see probably fitting the 2nd Death. I don't know, maybe dropping a Potion of Madness. I think that makes sense. But for now, I go with 1 Death. I'd rather be able to answer all the early game stuff and try to find another way to deal with the later game stuff. 2 Tarcreeper. Originally, I had Circle of Healing and Akanai Soul Priest, but I never really liked that mechanic. Tarcreeper comes out earlier, and it's good defensively. And really, I was looking for a card that's anti-aggro, and Tarcreeper is as good as it comes. We're a combo deck, so we want to search for the combo pieces, and this does a good job of stalling that. Priest of the Feast. I wanted some kind of heal, and I also wanted board presence. And like I said, versus aggro, the win condition isn't OTK. The win condition is draining the resource and surviving. So Priest of the Feast gets you out of the lethal range, you know what I mean? And so instead of using my spells on a Gadget Stand, I use it on the Priest of the Feast, right? 1 Tortollan Shell Raiser. I had a spot that was open, and I wanted a 3rd 4-drop. I wanted at least 3 4-drops. I think that's, for me, that's a pretty good rule of thumb when it comes to the curve. And I figured the taunt would be nice. So I like that. And I like turtles. So I like this card. It's a turtle card. Burgly Bully. Now, this is probably the MVP of the deck, and we'll talk a little bit about it. First of all, at 5 mana, its stats are unparalleled. There are no creatures and no single card removal besides Fireball at 5 mana or below that will deal with Burgly Bully. And that makes it very strong, because it's going to do one of 2 things. You're going to play on curve and force your opponent to trade up into it, or he's going to use removal, which means you're going to get coins, or he's going to ignore it, which means you're going to get coins, or you're going to untap with the 4/6 guy. Every scenario is good. Every scenario is very, very good. This card is underrated. You see many games where my opponent maybe dealt with it, but it cost them 2 cards, or it cost them their board, or my opponent didn't deal with it, and it drew me a shitload of cards with Gadget Stand because of the coin. And it's a great mechanic, and it's a great combo, and it's very, very fun. It's very fun. Just keep in mind that if you have 2 Burgly Bullies in play, things can get kind of hazy, right? It can get kind of worrisome, because every time the opponent plays a spell, you gain 2 cards. So if they play 2 or 3 cards, spells, you're looking at gaining 6 cards, and that's an issue. But that typically doesn't happen a lot. So, and to be honest, if you have a Gadget Stand in hand and you have 6 coins, you're going to win the game. 1 Holy Nova. I was looking for a board wipe that was not going to wipe my board, so I didn't want Dragonfire Potion, and I wanted something that could possibly be comboed with Cleric. So Holy Nova was obviously the only choice for me. So we're deciding to play 1. I could probably see removing this for Shadow Word Death should the meta be a lot slower and more control oriented. 1 Lyra the Sunshard. Sometimes OTK combos is unreliable, or maybe you draw both your Divine Spirits early. In those cases, Lyra is good because you can grab value in another way, right? So Lyra is a very, very crazy card, and she fits any control or combo-based idea, I think. And lastly, Gadgets and Auctioneer, which is the king of draw. 6 for the 4/4. This card is a house versus priest, and I've challenged a lot of priests lately. And I don't think I've lost a priest game lately except one, simply because Burgly Bully and Gadgets and Auctioneer do so much work. And this card does a lot of work in a lot of matchups. Against aggro, obviously, you never want to see this. But against the rest of the field, I think it does pretty good. So that's a deck check. I think it's time to get some games. So in the next video, we're going to do that.